bit better and to go from there. So I'm going to share with you some slides again today, and we'll have some fun. Y'all ready? If you're ready, type in the chat an R and say, I'm ready. So here we go. If I do this correctly, this should go to, yes, it'll go over there. So do I have to put my glasses on to do this? Share screen, share, and slideshow, and play from current slide. You should see, tell me in the chat, let me put my glasses on. Tell me in the chat if you see day 3 self-talk. Yes? All good. Good. Here we go. So day 3 self-talk. Introduction to self-talk. We're going to talk about the definition, the ubiquity of it, how often ubiquity means, how often it's just absolutely present in our day. And we're going to talk about the initial recognition of it. When did it start? Who started to talk about self-talk, and what's the importance of it? So definition. This is the internal dialogue. This is the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, about ourselves, through ourselves, both conscious and unconscious. That's the important thing. Let me give you a quick definition of between the conscious and the unconscious. It was given to me like this 3 decades ago. Somebody said, imagine the biggest arena you could think of, the biggest sports arena you could think of. Think of that. Now, at the very top of that sports arena, imagine it may be an opened arena, but imagine if there was a dome and it was completely closed in. Imagine at the top of that arena sits a golf ball. A golf ball on the top of this huge arena. The golf ball is our conscious awareness. The arena is our subconscious or unconscious. There's 3 levels of consciousness: consciousness, subconscious, unconsciousness. The things we're not even aware of. The subconscious is the path, is the gateway to the unconscious, where we operate with wired in stories, wired in things. The way that we act and the way that we respond to things could be based upon the way our parents did. So self-talk is based upon the subconscious and the unconscious that puts us into our current conscious state. It's huge. It's huge. I get it. It's huge. So what's next? This includes all sorts of internal dialogue, from the mundane tasks. How many of you have driven home and didn't know how you got home? You're like, oh my God, I don't even remember driving home, right? To your personal identities and to your values. It's everywhere, regardless of culture or background. There's people on here who are international. There's people who are on here who have heritage back to a variety of countries: Romania, Germany, Serbia, Bosnia, right? Ireland. It's a universal experience. This is why when we grasp this, you know how a lot of people say, oh my God, this would be so good this is for everyone. This isn't for everyone, because everyone's already doing it. So it's not like it's a new thing that people should try. Could you imagine walking up to somebody and say, you should try some self-talk? They go, what are you talking about? I already do that. Does that make sense? It influences our decision-making. Think about how many decisions you're about to make today. Think about how many decisions you're about to make today that you would like to make better decisions about. It's not your ability to make better decisions. It's your ability to have a better self-talk that allows your decision-making to unfold. It influences our emotions, the way we feel. How many of you would like better emotions today? You would like to feel better today. It is your self-talk that drives your emotions and your reactions to events, often operating below the level of conscious awareness. Here's why this is so key. This is why I want you to invite, I want you to allow the idea, the thought, the possibility of brain talk to be the new level of your self-talk. Because the brain talk, we upgrade, we literally upgrade the hardware, the operating surface that your software, your self-talk runs on. So the initial ones were Epictetus in his work, however you say that. I've tried to say it a couple of times and I forget it. I can say meditations, but Epictetus, the other word for that, the name of that book is called The Manual. And that book I do have. And in one of those Epictetus statements where he emphasizes his own mind and thought is, for those of you who have desire, put it on the shelf. This is Epictetus speaking. For those of you that have desire, put it on the shelf until such time you realize what's within your circle of influence and what's outside of your circle of influence. Once you make that determination, pick up desire and go to work. You'll never have another bad day. See, this is understanding our self-talk. We think we can control things outside of us, and we don't. We get wired to think that our self-talk can fix everything, but it's the self-talk we're using is keeping us stuck where we're at. This is the thing that has influence. So this is where this isn't something new. From Marcus Aurelius and his meditations to Epictetus, the manual, thousands of years old, this idea of self-talk. So some supporting background. Here's who Epictetus was in the manual or the handbook. It's a concise guide to Stoic philosophy. You can Google it. Just Google Epictetus in the manual, and you can find that book on Amazon. And why it's so important is because there's some basic fundamental reasons how we can use self-talk to help us understand. So one of the more recent ones is Ryan Holiday's The Daily Stoic, emphasizing the relevance of self-talk in the modern life. So this is important. This isn't what's he talking about, self-talk? This seems like it's a new idea. There's a lot of prominent, wildly successful people who deal with self-talk and are having conversations about it today. So here's a little bit of the history of it, right? Stoicism laid the groundwork to understanding it. It was about cultivating resilience. How many of us would like to have better resilience? We have something hits us, knocks us down, we can get up faster. What do they say about the difference between the gold medal winner and the silver medal winner? It's only tenths of a second. It's how fast they get up. It's not will they get knocked down. It's how fast can you get up. I know as I mature, one of the things people in the wellness world tell me is get down on the floor and get back up. Get down on the floor and get back up. You want to have a full body workout, get down on the floor and get back up. You will use all parts of your body. So this is about how fast can you get up? How fast can you get back to a positive state? Some people are so wildly poor in their self-talk. Something hits them and they're out for a week. They're out for a month. It's crazy. And then Eastern philosophies, maybe you've heard of them, Buddhism, Hinduism, which also recognize internal dialogue and self-talk. In Christianity and religious formats, it's called prayer. Right? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Right? All of this to say is that when we pray, God, make this happen. If you do this, I'll be good forever. Right? Prayer is self-talk. It's meditation. So it's about creating that internal conversation and shaping belief systems and moral behaviors. How many of us have some belief systems that sometimes doesn't serve us? I'm not good enough. That's a belief system that you're not using to your advantage. You're using it to your disadvantage. And you're going to see why moving from self-talk to brain talk is going to be so much more powerful and an understanding, because we're actually going to be activating certain parts of the neural process. Think about it. If you said, I want to go build my body with health. If I do bicep curls, are they going to improve my abs? Maybe, just from the holding the weight of the holding the weight in my arms and forcing energy on my core, but I am not targeting it. Brain talk targets the parts of the area of the brain that continually have a default mode network operation that keeps us stuck. How many of you have heard with certain diseases where they can do laser treatment, where they can do chemotherapy in a particular radiation segment of the brain, kills everything else, but it targets an area. What if you finally had a dialogue system, a NESS system that allowed you to target an area of your brain that is causing you resistance? So traditional 20, right? So you can, Sigmund Freud, his psychoanalytical theory, all of this stuff, the rise of cognitive philosophy, what Aaron Beck does and Ellis does. Here's a little bit about the psychoanalytical theory from Freud, deeply influenced by unconscious motives. How many of you, your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, were wired with unconscious motives for safety and security? My mother's family came from Russia, persecuted Jews. My father's family came from Ireland. I don't know if they were persecuted, but I know they weren't far from the wars that were happening. What I'm saying is that this has been wired into us. This has been put into our DNA, into our cells, epigenetics. We can turn on certain genes and turn off certain genes. All of this to say, we've got some science behind this. We're more aware of this terminology called neuroplasticity. The impact of self-talk now on brain pathways and the emotional regulation and cognitive functioning of the brain. So neuroplasticity, if you haven't heard of it, it's neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to recognize and reorganize itself into new connections and thought process. It's called creating new neural networks. Right now, maybe some of this might be new for you. And if it's new for you, you're creating new neural networks. Let me let you in on a little science. Whenever you get into a learning process, if you think some of this is cool, the connections between your neurons, the synapse, those little teeny tiny place in your brain where we have billions and billions and billions of connections, those synapses, the average on average, when you're in your DMN, your default mode network, it's about 1,300 connections per synapse. When you go into a learning process, because the brain does two things, will this kill me or how fast could I recognize a pattern? It's going to say, wait a minute, this looks like stuff that could help us. This looks like stuff that could protect us. This looks like stuff we could use to build a bigger wall around us. Education does that. Your connections go from 1,300 to 2,600. Like that. You didn't have to turn it on. It's by default the way the brain operates. It always operates in a way when the brain becomes stressed. Now, let me ask you a question. Can the brain be stressed positively? Absolutely. Hopefully, that's what's happening right now. Can the brain be stressed negatively? I'll let you answer that. The connections can get doubled just as fast, which means we can remember bad patterning better than we can remember positive patterning. Does that make sense? So self-talk is crucial in the emotional regulation. How many times have we ever have you ever met somebody who was so emotionally charged they couldn't breathe? And you're just trying to tell them, breathe, 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 take a breath. Maybe it was your peanut and they fell down, hit their head, and they're just like, all right, they're just absolutely lost it. So you're wanting to help them with their self-talk, whether it's consciously, subconsciously, or unconsciously. You want to help them and you tell them, breathe. How many times have you been told to breathe and you're like, oh, oh. So this is how often you use self-talk. Self-talk helps you improve your cognitive functioning. How many of you have known somebody who needed to avoid ice cream at night to lose some weight? Yes, that's called willpower, but where do you get your willpower from? Your self-talk. Listen, I'm going to share with you some ideas. So here's Norman Dodge in his book, The Brain That Changes Itself. These are some references, right? So you just don't think I'm pulling all of this out of the air. So positive or constructive self-talk can strengthen neural pathways, while negative self-talk can reinforce detrimental patterns. Your self-talk is always building. What is it building? That's up to you. So we're going to transition to brain talk. Brain talk is an advanced form of self-talk. NESS and brain talk involves consciously directing internal dialogue to influence brain activity and neural pathways, going beyond traditional self-affirmation or cognitive reframing. I am a millionaire. That's a self-affirmation. I believe that I'm stronger. And you do some moves. That's cognitive reframing. This is about going beyond that. This is about understanding where we currently are, how far away we have to go, and what's the next step we need to do to get there. Brain talk is actively sculpting the brain's neuroplasticity through targeted, intentional thought patterns. A lot of times people will go through life and say, I'm enough. And you don't believe it. So if you don't believe it and you don't see a result, all of a sudden you say, didn't work, doesn't work. And then you never go back to it. Wallace D. Wattles in his book says something I probably say a dozen times a day. It's not about doing certain things. It is about doing things in a certain way. How many of you try to make your grandmother's recipe and can never seem to get it quite right, and you don't know what it is that she does? It's just something that she does. Maybe it's the love she makes it with. You're attempting to recreate it, and she sits from creation. It could be that simple. It could be. So the evolution from traditional self-talk. Understand in psychology and personal development, the primary focus on changing negative thoughts into positive ones. That's all we're trying to do. That's all self-talk is attempting to do, which is huge. Taking negative ones and turning them into positive. But here's what brain talk does. It extends the concept by incorporating an understanding of how specific thought patterns can affect brain regions and brain functions, making the process a more targeted and effective approach. Listen, how many of you want better fuel mileage in your car? When gas gets more expensive, how many of you want better fuel mileage in your car? When thoughts, listen carefully, when thoughts get expensive, how many of you would like a better functioning brain? That's what brain talk is. That's what the NESS program does, is it improves your efficiency with every thought. Bold statement, I know. The results are, it works 100% of the time. 100% of the time, because it's a multi-targeted, multifaceted, brain-activated concept. Not just, remember I always say success is a math problem? You have one thought. Today you'll have 70,000 thoughts. Okay, I'll have two thoughts. So now you'll have 69,998 versus 2. What can we do to force the brain into becoming aware that the transition that you desire, that your wellness and your free will allows you to have, your creativity, your control over your mind? When you decide that you are going to have control over your mind, you can target the areas of your brain that are producing the results that you don't want, so you can influence them. Brain talk and recent neuroscientific findings and understanding how the different types of thought affect different areas. I'm going to go into that in just a minute. I'm going to show you how different thoughts you currently have affect different parts of the brain. Where brain talk is not just emotional regulation, but also for enhancing cognitive function, creativity, and enhancing results. So here's positive versus negative thinking. Kind of a generic, kind of a basic, kind of a fundamental. But let's look at where I want you to understand the science. Now, inside of the NESS program, you're not going to have to learn any of this. You're not going to have to understand any of this because it's already wired into the program. It's kind of like when I flip the light on, the switch light. I know which way to flip the switch. I was taught up is on, down is off, typically. I don't know how it works inside of the switch, and I don't know how electricity works. So could you imagine if, in order for me to use the NESS program, I needed to understand how it activates and treats my brain uniquely and efficiently and effectively every time? I just know it works. I just know when I flip on my NESS program, it works. So for example, through fMRIs, if you've heard fMRIs, that stands for functional, meaning while the brain is active, right? You're not just laying still in an MRI, right? Don't move. They have your head. They got a target on your head. Don't move, don't move, don't move. An fMRI tracks the blood flow inside of the brain or the body of that particular area. So fMRI demonstrates the positive emotions and thoughts tend to be activated in the frontal lobes. Here's the thing. Listen carefully. We can literally count the number of positive and the number of negative neurons in your brain. Positive are usually stored in the left prefrontal cortex, levels of happiness and lower anxiety, and the negative in the right frontal cortex. I want you to just let that sink in for just a second. This isn't something that somebody took a drug and the brain said, okay, we'll start now. Now we'll start from the year 1785. The brain is now wired to put all positive on the left and negative on the right. This has been wired into us from the beginning. The beginning. So if somebody is a little bit more negative, is it possible that they have more negative neurons in their brain? It's not possible. It is a fact. So if we want to increase our positive thoughts, I have a friend of mine who teaches Psyche, who talks about cross body, crossing the corpus callosum, that little tiny little bridge between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. Things like cross crawls. Right now, just take your hands and just tap your shoulders. Just take your hands and tap your shoulders and pay attention to your stress. Pay attention to your stress. What you're going to find is that it's going to minimize because your brain is saying, well, my left side is in good shape and my right side is in good shape. I must no longer need to be in stress. And it will literally lower the focus on the right prefrontal cortex. This is why NESS, the neuroenergetic self-sculpting, you're actually doing the work to create yourself. Self-referential thoughts about oneself have been found to activate the medial prefrontal cortex. This area involves the processing of information related to oneself, including one's own thoughts and feelings. This is particularly relative to self-talk practices as they directly engage the self-referential processing. So if we understand what goes on in the PFC, the medial prefrontal cortex, wouldn't it make sense for us to also understand other things that go on in that particular area that we can activate the self? Imagine if we start to play binaural beats that make the self feel better. That means when information comes through the MPFC, all of a sudden it might be received better. Is this making sense? Drop a 1 in the chat. This is why it's better to understand the multifaceted approach, right? Mindfulness and meditation. We understand that mindfulness and meditation are practices which involve specific types of focused thoughts and absence of discursive thoughts. Or you know what I mean by that? We're not beating ourselves up. So this is the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex. There's a lot of things that happen in the ACC and the insula, which are involved in attention. So when I create the self-talk is usually a stereo, right? You hear it in both ears. But one of the things is the tri-integration of information, meaning left ear, right ear, and both ears. The brain hears things differently. How many of you have tried to listen to a mono presentation, a mono stereo? In a stereo, you usually hear it in one ear, but it just sounds a little hollow, right? So then there's a left ear and there's a right ear, and then there's the third, right, which is the wholeness. And this is called tri-integration. Isn't that interesting? So again, it is a full brain approach to help you create this mindfulness. So regular mindful practice can lead to changes in these areas, suggesting that the brain can be trained and sculpted through these practices. Isn't that cool? Stressful versus relaxing thoughts. How many of us have ever had a stressful thought? How many of us have had a relaxing thought? Did our brain, if we had a stressful thought, listen to it. How is it a stressful thought if it's happening in the brain? How is it a relaxing thought if it's happening in the brain? There's a phenomenon called neuroencoding. What we think, we put into our body. Stressful thoughts have been linked to increased activity. You've heard this, the little almond in your brain, the amygdala, particularly fear and stress. Relaxing thoughts reduce the activity in the amygdala. So it doesn't throw perfume on the mess that's called a negative thought. It literally shuts down the amygdala. The amygdala is the fight or flight. It is the alarm that is in your body that is on constant high alert. How many of you have ever had your phone vibrate when you're late on a bill and you're like, oh, is that them calling? You haven't even looked at the number. You just know that the sound of the ring or the vibration of it on the table, it could be them, and it forces your body to go into stress. See, self-talk doesn't necessarily trigger or activate or deactivate the amygdala. It needs to create a new set of neural pathways, a new neural genesis that needs to stay in place. And how do you create a new neural genesis, a new neural pattern? Is through repetition, 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 repetition. And if you're doing self-talk 2 or 3 times a day and don't quite yet believe it, it takes a while for self-talk to kick in. Brain talk, on the other hand, can begin to be implemented the first day you begin it, because it's a multifaceted approach that attacks and attracts what you need, shuts down and turns on the thoughts in your brain that are needed to reach your goals. Creative thinking deals with the default mode network, also the medial prefrontal cortex and the post-singular cortex. I wanted to share these brain terms with you so that you understand that this is a targeted approach when using the NESS system. This is about engaging the brain at a new level of awareness, decision-making, the prefrontal cortex, the orbital frontal cortex, the parietal cortex, all of these things where you gather this, the words that we use in self-talk, activated with some physical things like tapping, EFT, chakra clearing, awareness, attention, gives you the ability to understand how NESS can work. So here's the definition. It's an innovative approach to personal development, aka undevelopment, that combines principles of neuroplasticity, energy psychology, and self-talk to sculpt and enhance mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Listen, this didn't happen overnight. This has been a 30-year process that is finally the light bulb, right? 9,999 times, and on the 10,000th time, the light bulb worked. How many times did it take the light bulb to work? 1? Yeah, but it took 9,999 practices. Maybe that's where we're at with this process. So harnessing the power of the mind and energy system like chakras to create positive change. See, self-talk is you, your mind, and it's kind of like playing baseball by yourself. Unless you're Bugs Bunny, it's kind of hard to do it. Pitch the ball, catch the ball, hit the ball, run, throw to first base, throw yourself out, run to second base, pitch the ball, catch the ball. It's possible if you stay in it long enough and you stay doing it strong enough. I kept thinking there's got to be an advanced way. There's got to be a way that we can enhance self-talk. And that's when NESS was born. Through the training in neuroencoding, through the training in mental toughness, through the training in addiction to approval, through the training in self-talk, through the training in hypnotherapy, through the training in hypnosis, through all of these trainings, realizing that there's a certain number of switches that are in a code in your body that when flipped correctly in concert, allow you to break through breakthroughs and the break freeze. So here's the principles. Belief and flexibility of the brain, the neuroplasticity, the importance of energy and transformation, transformative power of self-directed thought. It's one of the things that we're doing in the gratitude calls in the morning. I'm allowing you time and space to do your self-directed thought. That's what gratitude is. It's not being grateful, saying thank you. Gratitude is saying what I want is already done, which requires you to have a shift in your awareness, in your executive functioning, in your executive thinking, that what is to be is already done. And that shift in energy in your body is open through the chakras, released through EFT tapping, that allows you to finally incorporate a new level of belief that allows it to be done. Ergo, gratitude is now in place. Yeah, that's a lot. All of that's happening in the blink of an eye inside your brain. We want to improve your emotional regulation. Some of you may still have roller coaster days. What if you decided you're going to stay at the peak of your roller coaster from now until forever? That's what the NESS program helps you do. So that's what our conversation is today. Where's my stop share? And I'm back on screen. Hey, hey, hey. That's the power of self-talk. We covered a lot in a little bit of time. What I want you to know, this is the beginning. I want you to understand that this part of self-talk, understanding the words. Yes, there's the words. I'm on the Self-Talk Institute with Dr. Shad Helmstetter. I think it's a phenomenal daily use product. I know that a lot of people, let's say this, less than the amount I would like, continue with the program. Why? Because it's a one-prong approach to your wellness. And if that's the case, how do we increase the number of prongs? How do we increase the number of pitchforks that are actually going at and dealing with and reducing the negative self-talk that's available? That's what NESS is designed to do through the use of self-talk, through the use of neuroencoding, understanding where you currently are with a statement that comes out of EFT, energy freedom technique, and through tapping, opening the meridians in the different spots. People are like, tapping, that really works. It really works. It is a multifaceted approach to allow you to have a level of success that might intimidate you right off the bat. So that's day 3. That's session 3 of self-talk, of the NESS program in self-talk. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how it all gets put together. What does a program look like? How does it look? How does it feel? What does it do? What do you need to do? And I'm going to give you some examples and some actual audios for you to be able to download and listen to and use as my gift to you, that will deal with self-worth and some emotional beings and some building your business. And they'll have the dual talk already established inside of them. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait till tomorrow for you to get that. So now we're going to just wrap this up and we're going to open up for some live Q&A. So welcome to the call. Questions, comments, thoughts. Let me get my chair over here. Excuse me, Jameson. Excuse me. Hang on just a second. I'll be back in just a second. And I'm back. Sorry about that. You can tell it's live, not Memorex. So, questions, comments, thoughts, takeaways from today. All good? Okay. Well, what we will be doing then is tomorrow we'll be putting the program in place and putting it all together. And we'll do some live examples and maybe create some on the fly right directly for you. And we'll go from there. So I appreciate y'all today. I love you tons. Thanks for being part of the NESS program, day 3. And I'll see you all where?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Heather.
Will, when this is released,
Yes.
will it be, I'm going to go back to the self-talk app that we have access to right now. Is it going to be similar to that in that there's different
yes,
couple of categories of things that are going to be pre-done?
Yes, there's going to be categories that will be pre-done. There'll be the no fee version because I want people to have an unfair advantage in today's world. And then the paid version or the fee version of it will be custom designed specifically with your statements and your chakra clearings and your chakra clearings with your self-talk statements based upon the goal that you want to target. So it'll be highly, highly, highly focused on you, where these are wildly designed, specifically engaged self-talks that you get through the app, the fee-paid app. That's the version of that. I'll have those as well. That'll be no fee, but the fee-paid version will be specifically customized to you. And that process takes about between 4 to 8 hours to create a custom program for you, because it deals with your binary beats, your binaural beats, your frequencies, the specific frequencies for the goal that you want to target. It's all I can say is for the folks that I've done it for already in some test modes, I know it sounds crazy to say, but it's been 100% successful, which kind of makes me happy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So how do we access that, John?
It's in the process of being completed, and tomorrow you'll have the programs for it, the free programs that'll be available, and the self-talk is usually 3 to 5 minutes. They may be 8-minute long because of them using the dual talk. So they're a little bit longer than your traditional single self-talk. But yes, you'll have access to some of the free versions tomorrow, and more free versions will go out. They'll be in a particular website that you'll have access to have access to all of the no fee versions, which are still their brain talk versions. So there'll be dual talk. There'll be a variety of things. And then when you want to go for a custom one, we can have a conversation and create you some conversations of some brain talks with dual talk and all that good stuff. Thank you for asking. Anyone else? Love it. Okay. Well, thank you. Tomorrow, bring some friends and let them know that, because those of you that are here or in my inner circle will have access to the no fee versions of it as we roll this out. And I get some feedback from you, because there's probably going to be some tweaks and some adjustments that you might suggest to me. So those who are part of the call and or in my inner circle already will have access to those. And as they continue to roll out, you'll have access to those as well. So I love it. All right. Thanks, everybody. I will see y'all where?
At the next event.
At the next event.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.